I'm Dr. Keenan Bridges, and I'm really excited about the supernatural. You know, I've had experiences with God for most of my life, and I just want to share a couple of them with you. I remember growing up and really seeking God, and as a young teenager being filled with the Holy Spirit at a very early age. And I had my first angelic encounter when I was about 16 years old, and I didn't really know what to think of it. Seeing an angel for the first time, it just kind of a silhouette of this being appeared in my room, but I knew it wasn't demonic. I knew it was of God. And he just looked at me and he just kind of vanished away. And I remember seeing a vision in my house of these angels ascending and descending upon a ladder over my house. And I didn't realize at the time that God was preparing me for further miraculous encounters. And so fast forward, as a pastor and minister, you know, ministering the gospel, going all over the world, I remember one particular time I come from England and I was on the plane, and this was very, very phenomenal. As I'm on the plane, I was just praying and just ready to get back home and really wanted to get some sleep at some point, but I was just kind of up and excited. And I remember as I'm just staring on the plane, all of a sudden, like at the snap of a finger, I look up and I'm in heaven. And the first thing I thought was that my plane crashed, and I thought, man, I didn't get to say goodbye to my wife and my children. That was my first thought. And then that thought kind of faded away, and I was trying to figure out where exactly, you know, I was. I knew I was in heaven, but it was plush and green. It was like there were clouds, but there was just this golden, it's hard to even explain it. There was just glory everywhere, and the green pastures everywhere. And I remember just kind of basking in that presence and trying to figure out, you know, just kind of what all of this means, soaking up the atmosphere of heaven. And as I was just about to get my feet wet, so to speak, or, you know, kind of just settle down, I remember as I was getting in that mode of trying to settle in heaven, immediately I began to go back into, it's like I came back into my body, if you will. I don't really know how to explain it, but I was phasing back in. And as that was taking place, I saw the face of Jesus. And the only thing I can tell you is when I looked in his eyes, they were like flames of fire, full of love, full of truth. It's like he was looking right through me. There was not anything that was false in him. He was just the physical and spiritual embodiment of all truth. And he just gazed at me. And as he looked at me, I heard these words. He said, "Tell my people there's so much more." And as that happened, I just came back to, and I was just kind of like looking around, trying to figure out what had just taken place. And that really did something to me. That really sparked in me sort of a heavenly vision, and I began to teach on that. I began to share with people that we have to have a heavenly vision. We have to really seek him, and that led to other encounters. But what it really did was it began to increase the supernatural in my life. I began to have more and more visions and revelations. I began to have more angelic encounters, and also the miraculous began to increase in my ministry. And I remember on another occasion, we were invited to preach at a church. There was an Assemblies of God church that we were invited to preach. My wife and I were ministering together. And as we got ready to do the altar call, they began to call people down to the altar. And one particular couple came down. They were former pastors. And the wife had melanoma on the skin. She had this skin cancer, and she was terrified. She began to cry, began to weep. She said, I don't want to die. I want to live. I want to, you know, I don't want to be a statistic. You know, I want to minister for the Lord. And I remember just listening to her and thinking to myself, God, please touch this woman. And as I was getting ready to pray for her, the Lord spoke to me and he said, don't lay hands on her. Don't lay hands on her. He said, all I want you to do is tell her these words. She shall live and not die. And as I told her that she should live and not die, the glory literally came into the room. It just came into the room and began to just sweep all over the place. We felt the glory. The best way I can describe it is like a blanket of bricks was thrown on top of us. The young lady that was behind her, that was an usher, she literally fell under the power of God. The woman that was being prayed for, she fell under the power of God. And we nearly came down ourselves because there was such a weight of the glory over us. So she was on the ground for about, I would say maybe 10 minutes or so, just kind of, being there. And I thought, okay. So we just let her kind of just rest. And as she was resting on the ground, the most amazing thing happened. She got up from the ground. And when she got up from the ground, I remember just seeing the glory all over this lady. She was just excited and she was just at peace. And she said to me, she says, there's such a peace and such a presence that I feel. And I said, thank you. And she said, I just really thank you for praying for me. And I said, it's okay. Anyway, we just let her kind of go on about her day and she went on home. And I remember about 2 days later, we were preaching on a Sunday. And as we were preaching this Sunday, we got a message from this lady. And the message that she sent, she said that as I was in the shower a couple days after you guys prayed for me, she said all the cancerous growths on my body began to wither and they began to fall off of her. And she was totally healed and delivered. And not only that, but we began to follow up with her later on, and she was actually still healed. And she told us that the growths that some of the older growths had fallen off, and all the newer growths, they started to fall off as well. So it was really, really miraculous. And I tell you, these situations have really changed my life. They've changed the way I've seen miracles. They've changed the way I've seen signs and wonders. They've changed the way that my wife and I pray. And at this point, we live a life that's devoted to teaching people about the power and presence of God. And I'm really excited about it. I think that this is a time where God's going to continue to minister to people. He's going to continue to show himself strong in that regard and give people more and more miraculous encounters and seeing angels and things of that nature. So I believe that as we continue to contend for the supernatural, we're going to see more and more signs and wonders. And I believe that what I've experienced, as I've shared with you today, will be your experience eventually. And so I just pray that over you, that God will continue to increase the miraculous in your life as well. God bless you.